Hello, I'm Sebastian. Welcome to Nine Nar Trees podcast. Today, I will summarize and review the book, Joseph A. Schumpeters. Can Capitalism Survive is a concise, provocative classic that distills one of the most influential ideas in modern political economy. Capitalism renews itself through creative destruction, the continual process by which new products, firms, and business models displace old ones. Written by an economist who combined theory with a deep interest in history and institutions, the book looks beyond simple arguments about markets versus planning. Schumpeter asks whether the very dynamism that makes capitalism productive also erodes its social foundations over time. He examines how innovation changes industry structure, how large organizations and bureaucracies reshape competition, and how political and cultural pressures can turn success into vulnerability. Rather than treating capitalism as a fixed system, he presents it as an evolving order whose future depends on entrepreneurship, social legitimacy, and the capacity of institutions to adapt. The result is an essential entry point for readers seeking to understand innovation-driven growth and the long-run tensions within advanced economies. I will give you key takeaways from this book. Firstly, creative destruction as the engine of capitalist progress. At the center of Schumpeter's argument is the claim that capitalism is defined less by static price competition and more by waves of innovation that restructure the economy. Creative destruction refers to the way new technologies, methods, and organizational forms make older ones obsolete. This is not a marginal adjustment, but a recurring upheaval that rewrites what counts as efficient, profitable, or even possible. Schumpeter emphasizes that growth is driven by qualitative change, new goods, new production processes, new markets, and new ways of coordinating resources. The consequence is that firms and workers experience continuous disruption, while society gains long-term increases in productivity and living standards. The idea also reframes how to evaluate competition. Instead of focusing only on how many firms exist in a market at a moment in time, Schumpeter highlights dynamic rivalry, where the real contest is over who will introduce the next breakthrough. This perspective helps readers understand why periods of stability can be deceptive, why dominant incumbents can be vulnerable, and why policy debates that ignore innovation may miss the main source of economic transformation. Secondly, entrepreneurship, innovation, and the role of the firm. Schumpeter places the entrepreneur, broadly understood as the agent of innovation, at the heart of capitalist development. Entrepreneurship is not simply business ownership or small-scale commerce. It is the capacity to recombine resources in new ways and to push change into the market. This shift in emphasis matters because it connects economic growth to human initiative, leadership, and risk-taking under uncertainty. Schumpeter also considers how innovation is financed and organized, including the importance of credit, investment, and the institutional settings that allow experimentation. Over time, however, he observes that innovation may become routinized inside large firms, with research, management, and planning replacing the heroic lone entrepreneur. That evolution can increase efficiency and scale, but it also alters capitalism's social narrative. The system looks less like open opportunity and more like administration by elites. The topic invites readers to think about how startups, venture finance, corporate research, and regulation interact, and why the structure of firms influences the pace and direction of innovation. It also sheds light on how societies can either cultivate or suppress entrepreneurial energy. Thirdly, market structure, monopoly, and dynamic competition. A distinctive element of Schumpeter's analysis is his willingness to challenge the assumption that perfect competition is always the ideal benchmark. In an innovation-driven economy, temporary market power can be a byproduct of successful invention and a source of funds and incentives for further research and development. Schumpeter therefore treats monopolies and oligopolies with more nuance than standard narratives that equate concentration with stagnation. The question becomes whether market power is contestable over time and whether new entrants can displace incumbents through superior innovations. This dynamic lens helps explain why dominant firms may invest heavily in new capabilities, why industries can experience punctuated bursts of change, and why antitrust debates are complex when technological progress is rapid. At the same time, Schumpeter recognizes risks. Entrenched firms may use influence, legal strategies, or control over distribution to block challengers and slow the process of creative destruction. Readers come away with a framework for evaluating competition policy that balances the benefits of innovation incentives against the dangers of durable monopoly, and that distinguishes short-run pricing concerns from long-run progress. Fourthly, why capitalism creates its own social and political challenges. Schumpeter's most famous provocation is that capitalism may not fail because it stops producing wealth, but because its success transforms society in ways that undermine its legitimacy. As capitalism develops, it expands education, builds large organizations, and increases reliance on specialized knowledge and administration. These changes can weaken older social structures and norms that once supported entrepreneurial capitalism. Schumpeter argues that large-scale corporate life, bureaucracy, and a professionalized intellectual class can generate skepticism toward market outcomes, profit motives, and inequality, even as living standards rise. The public may become more willing to accept regulation and planning, not necessarily because markets collapse, but because capitalism appears impersonal and dominated by institutions rather than individuals. Political pressures, redistributional conflicts, and cultural critiques can accumulate, reducing the social tolerance for disruption and inequality that creative destruction often brings. This topic is valuable because it connects economics to sociology and politics, offering a long-run view of why debates over capitalism intensify in advanced economies. It also encourages readers to examine legitimacy, trust, and social cohesion as economic variables. Lastly, the future of capitalism, adaptation, institutions, and alternatives. In considering whether capitalism can survive, Schumpeter does not treat the future as predetermined. Instead, he explores how institutional evolution can redirect economic systems. He discusses the possibility that capitalism gradually gives way to more managed or socialized arrangements, driven by the growth of bureaucracy, the routinization of innovation, and the political demand for stability and security. This is not presented as a simple moral verdict, but as an attempt to think historically about systemic change. The core issue is whether the institutional environment can preserve enough entrepreneurial dynamism and competitive pressure to keep creative destruction functioning while also addressing the social costs of disruption. Readers can apply this framework to contemporary questions about industrial policy, welfare states, globalization, and the governance of technology platforms. The theme also clarifies that economic systems are mixtures, markets, firms, and states interact, and the balance can shift without a single revolutionary event. Schumpeter's discussion equips readers to analyze reforms that aim to make capitalism more sustainable, to distinguish short-term crises from long-term trends, and to evaluate claims that capitalism is either inevitably collapsing or permanently self-correcting. In conclusion, this book fits readers who want a foundational, idea-driven explanation of why modern economies grow and why that growth is socially disruptive. It is especially useful for students of economics, business leaders thinking about innovation cycles, policymakers wrestling with competition and industrial strategy, and general readers trying to understand recurring debates about inequality, corporate power, and the legitimacy of markets. The main life benefit comes from adopting a dynamic view of change. Instead of seeing disruption as an accident, Schumpeter helps readers recognize it as a central feature of progress, with predictable winners, losers, and political reactions. That perspective can improve decisions about careers, investing, and policy preferences by encouraging realistic expectations about volatility and adaptation. Compared with many contemporary books on capitalism that focus narrowly on finance, ideology, or short-term crises, Schumpeter offers a durable framework that links entrepreneurship, market structure, and social attitudes in one integrated story. It is worth buying because it provides a compact classic argument that many later writers build upon, giving readers a sharper lens for evaluating new claims about technology, monopolies, and the future of the global economy. If you would like to support Joseph A. Schumpeter, you can buy the book through the Amazon link I've provided in the podcast description. After reading the book, please let me know what you think and share your thoughts. See you around.